Hey, welcome to the Keys to Therapy. Today's episode is all about the supplies that you need as a therapist. Now, when you're just starting out, you don't have a lot of stuff typically that you could bring with you. Most offices don't necessarily have all of the supplies. A lot of agencies, a lot of places that you may work may not have everything that you need. So something that makes being a therapist a little bit different is a lot of the expenses are on you. It's kind of like with teachers, right? Like a lot of the expenses of the things that they would want to have in their classrooms are on them. It's a little bit similar with us as therapists. So when you're just starting out especially, you have to kind of build up what your supply list is. You hopefully won't necessarily need like furniture or anything for whatever place you're going to be working in, but you're going to need some other things to make the sessions go well or to make your clients comfortable. So I kind of wanted to cover what some of those things would be today. So for those of you who are thinking about being a therapist, or for those of you who might still be in grad school, you may be able to get a little bit of a head start on what it is that you may want to have once you are in that first job. What's lucky or good about being in this position is a lot of the stuff that you get in the beginning, you can take with you to other jobs in the future. So you just have to kind of pace yourself with what you're getting. I know that the instinct for most therapists, I know this was true for me, was when I sort of pictured what my first office would be like. It was pretty. It was the big windows and all the natural light and plants and cute lamps and a beautiful couch. And it looked really sleek and clean and professional. And that was absolutely not the case in pretty much anywhere that I worked until now, having my own practice where I could really put stuff into place, and also like 10 years past graduation. So just know that it takes a while to really get things to be what you want. So first, I'll give you guys a little bit of a background on some of the places I've worked, so then you can get a feel for what different settings might come with. So in my first internship, there wasn't even a office space really. So I was kind of driving from place to place, and there wasn't a lot of like clients or anything to meet with. So most of the stuff that I would have on me would be things that you would need just for as a person to survive. So I won't go into that one too much. My second year internship was at a hospital. So the basic supplies were there, right? Like the computers were there, and like the rooms were there, and the chairs for like patients. Since it was a hospital, you call them patients. Since they were there, the art supply, stuff like that was already present. So luckily there wasn't a lot I had to bring to the table. Unless there was something specific that I wanted to do with clients, then I would have to be the one to purchase that stuff to bring it. But typically, because most of the groups I was doing were processing groups, or I was doing like individual or family sessions, I didn't really need much in the way of supplies, and people were there for such a short time. So just kind of heads up, if you're going to be working in a hospital type setting, there's probably not going to be a lot of supplies that you actually need. Then my job in community mental health, there was like the basic framework, like here's the office, here's a desk, here's a computer, here's your chair, and here's a client chair or 2 client chairs, I think there were at that point, or maybe a couch. That was all that was in the room. So that room was really tiny. There was no window. It was in the same hallway as the printer, like fax machine, shredder, copier. Like you would literally open my door and there was the copier. So there was a lot of things that were just not really like set up in the best way, but that's what you typically get with community mental health. You kind of make do with what you have because funding tends to be low. So I had to buy like lamps and things like that. I had to buy things that I would do with some of the clients. So I'll cover some of that stuff in a minute, but most of it with community mental health will be on you, most likely. You may be lucky enough to inherit some supplies that the previous therapist left for you, or that other therapists don't really want or use anymore. For the most part, a lot of it's going to be on you. When I worked, after that was with the military, there was nothing. The room was like a very like medical, it was the same type of thing, like no window. Here's a desk, here's your chair, and here's 2 recliners, and here's a little tiny like kids table that you can use as like a side table for people to put their cups and stuff on. And there was a bookshelf in there that had a ton of books, folders and stuff that the previous therapist had just left. So again, I had to buy the lamps, I had to buy stuff to put on the walls, a clock, like things like that. So the trend here is that most of the places you're going to be are going to be pretty bare. You are going to be responsible for a lot of the other stuff to put in there. So part of why I wanted to make that video today is to give you some ideas of what you could do to fill that space, or what kind of stuff you may need or want in that space to make it feel more homey and more like an office that you would want to be in. Because yeah, we decorate the space for the clients, but when you think about it, like, we're the ones that are sitting in there the majority of the time. They're in there an hour a week, every other week. We're the ones that are in there all the time. So you want to make sure that you've got what you need as well. So for settings that therapists may work in, like I mentioned first, the internship that I had originally, I had to travel a lot. So if you are working in intensive in-home, for example, or maybe you're a medical or hospice social worker, or you're working in the type of setting where you're going to be like visiting different people, or, you know, doing some kind of like in-home therapy, home visits, things along those lines, you are going to have your car be your office, essentially. So what I would recommend is having some kind of like tote bin or basket or something in your trunk that has some of the like basic supplies that you would need or want as you're going from home to home. So some of that would be like some sanitized wipes or sanitizer. It also depends on who you're working with. If you work with little kids, you're going to want a lot and going to need a lot more supplies. So you're going to want some wipes. You're going to want some sanitizer. You're probably going to want like some tissues, just to have on hand in case, you know, the client or the family that you're seeing is going through a lot. You may want like a change of clothes, essentially, just in case like the space you're going into isn't like the cleanest or the most sanitary. I know that a lot of people who've done intensive in-home have mentioned to me that they've been in settings that just really weren't very clean, and they've had to, you know, sit on the couch with the family, even though maybe the couch was like really stained, or the house had like a lot of trash or like bugs and stuff. So it would definitely help if you're going to be in people's homes, just to have that change of clothes on you in your car in case anything comes up. Because again, your car is basically going to be your office. So you may want some kind of, if you work with kids especially, you may want like a separate like tote bag or bin or something along those lines that you can carry into the home if you need to. So that would have maybe like some board games, some card games. You may want to have coloring books and different like art supplies. Probably not paint. That's very messy with kids and it's a lot to bring in and out. So stuff that's like really tangible, that's easy to clean if you needed to, and that you could just kind of bring in to a home, easily pack up and take out with you. So storage is going to be a big deal if your car is pretty much your office. Like, you're going to want to have things like very organized in your trunk or your back seat, that it's like, okay, this is for the adults, this is for the kids, or this is for me. So most people I know that have done like intensive and home type jobs, they are driving a lot. So for you as a therapist, the tools you would need are good music, you know, a good navigation tool. I know most of us use our phones now for like GPS. So keep a car charger in your car. Have a really good water bottle, like a really solid, like insulated one that'll keep things cold or keep ice solid. Because if you're gone for a lot of the day, burnout will happen faster because you don't have downtime, or your downtime, you have to multitask. Maybe you're driving and you're also eating your lunch, or you're driving and you're also making calls, or you're driving and you're dictating your note. Like, you're parked at the next house 10 minutes early, but instead of you being able to like legitimately take a break, you're doing your notes, or you're talking to a supervisor or something like that. So, you know, have healthy snacks in your car. Have some not so healthy ones too, because we all need those some days as well. Candy, mints. Mints are a big one as a therapist, because you're going to be talking to people all the time. And that will not only give you like dry mouth from talking to them, but you want your breath to be good. So that's all part of like the impression you're making and the rapport you're building with clients. So if they're like, oh, that person, they're clean, they smelled good, like they looked fresh, their breath was fresh, like you're going to make a good impression and kind of look more like you know what you're talking about. Plus it just might help you feel a little bit more confident to know like you are going in like hydrated, you are going in with nice, clean, fresh breath. So have some of those things on hand as well. And if you can, pack a lunch, So just like I said, with the water bottle being insulated, maybe like a really nice lunchbox that you have, because you don't want to stop for every like meal, snack, drink, things like that. That gets expensive. And as a new therapist, especially if you are doing more of like the traveling or intensive at home, those jobs tend to not pay as well. Or if you're not licensed yet, you're not going to get paid very well for the most part. There are exceptions, and thank God for those. But pretty much across the board, you are not going to get paid a lot. So you don't want to turn around and then spend most of your paycheck on food, on stuff to drink, on, you're going to spend some of it on gas. Like, you're not going to want to have to deal with all of that. So make sure that you're bringing some stuff that's going to make you feel good and healthy to go about your day. So take care of you too, if that's the situation. If you're in an office setting, keep everything low budget. Like I mentioned earlier, your instinct is going to be to have like the pretty decorations and all the beautiful art and all of that stuff. We can't afford that coming out of grad school. Maybe there's a few lucky ones whose like family has a bunch of stuff that they want to get rid of, or maybe the therapist before left some stuff. But for the most part, you're going to need to keep your office very like low budget and basic until you start accumulating things throughout the time that you work there. So, some of the best places to initially get stuff for your office would be things like the dollar store, Five Below, love like TJ Maxx, Home Goods. So the very basic, the first thing I would get would be lamps. The lighting really matters. And in those settings, like hospital, agencies, community mental health, like it's those nasty, harsh fluorescent lights. And that does not set a good tone. That's not warm. That's not comforting. That's not cute. So the very first thing, if you had to invest in something for your new office, don't have it be like the really nice chair, because someone's going to spill something on it, like something's going to happen. But try to make sure that the first thing you do is the lighting, because that is going to have the biggest effect. And it'll help for you too. If you're sitting in that space all day, that harsh fluorescent lights are not going to be good for you either. Like a lot of people get headaches. If you're doing telehealth all the time, you're going to already have like the light from the computer and screens. So you may want the room and space to look just more calm and comforting. So if you were going to invest in anything, lamps first. And even like Target, they have like the really cheap, tall floor lamps for like $10. So yeah, they're really basic and you gotta like screw them together and whatever, but it works. So I would start with that. Talk to your friends and family too before you get your office space, or once you do initially have that space. See if there's anything that they want to get rid of. I mean, that's sometimes the best place to get things, especially for free, if possible, is ask friends and family, hey, is there any lamps? Is there any like rugs that you guys don't really want? Any plants that you don't want to have to deal with? Little candles and things along those lines that you can find for fairly cheap. You might even have some of that stuff in your house. And whatever gets in there originally, it doesn't have to stay in there. And that was something I think I kind of struggled with, because I wanted the image to be great. I wasn't feeling the most secure as a brand new therapist, so I kind of hoped that like my space would reflect like, maybe I don't totally know what I'm doing, but like it looks like I do. And so you want to make sure that you are really putting out what you can afford and what is going to make the most sense to you. So you can build up to that. In the beginning, like I said, go cheap. Go to Target, go to Walmart, go to the dollar store. There's some random stuff that you will find there. That'll be great. If you work with little kids, going to like the dollar store or Five Below is perfect, because you are going to end up finding like, again, coloring books, crayons, markers, construction paper, Uno. I bought like a dollar store version of Chutes and Ladders when I first started, because I didn't have money. So I was like, okay, I need something to like play with these kids to build rapport. And a lot of those things are really cheap. So yard sales, that's another place to get cheap stuff. Or like Facebook Marketplace is a really good spot too, because there's a lot of people who end up like moving and either can't take stuff and will give it for free, or will give it like really cheap away. So I would check there too. See if there's anything like kid related, art supplies, toys, stuff like that, again, with friends or family. Sometimes people get like new things for Christmas and they want to get rid of the old stuff, or their birthdays and they upgrade. So be like, hey, is there any like toys or anything your kids have that maybe they really don't play with that I could borrow? So try to use up the people and the resources you already have. Like, make some calls, see what people got out there. Even like a Goodwill or something is going to have some things that you could probably piece together. But definitely kind of, like I said, dollar stores, Targets, TJ Maxx, Marshalls, those types of places. They'll have some like little cute decor things that you could put around that are not going to break the bank. And if for the first month, all you really have is the basics that are in there, maybe some nice lighting, or maybe like one poster on the wall that you already had or somebody in your family already had, like that's still a good start. Most clients, the space makes a difference, but it's not going to be like an absolute deal breaker. Most of them are so anxious coming into the first session or so ready to work on their stuff that they're not as concerned with you or your space as they are with themselves and how they feel. So don't put as much pressure on the space as it may feel like you need to. I think we all want that perfect picture, and you'll work your way up to what that looks like for you, and it'll probably change over the years what you want as well. So same thing like I mentioned with the car. If you're in an office space, you still need that really good water bottle because you're gonna be talking a lot. Maybe a good like coffee mug or something if that's your thing. You're gonna want to have some kind of like lunchbox, some sort of good like Tupperware or something you bring lunch to work with. So again, you're not spending the money that you have on these like day-to-day things that really add up over time. Make sure that you are, in your office, if your place doesn't supply it, have tissues. That kind of goes along with the lamps. Like, you want to know that you got some tissues. It's a cliche for a reason that therapists have a lot of tissues, because there's going to be those people who really need them. And you want to know that you have them and not interrupt the flow of the session because you've got to get up and go get them toilet paper, or they got to go to the bathroom or something because there's something to blow their nose with or wipe their eyes. So make sure that you've got at least that. Definitely one really good notebook and probably 2 really good pens. One to keep like as a spare because pens always disappear somehow, but have like those basics. Then as time goes on, that's when you can get like the cuter bookshelves, the fake flowers, the salt lamps, the candles, the plants, all the little things, or whatever that looks like to you. Some people are super into music, or they specialize in seeing athletes, and so they're gonna have more stuff related to those populations around them. Some people do a lot of play therapy, so it's gonna take them time to get the dollhouse or the sand tray. Where I used to work with community mental health, somebody took one of those like big Tupperware, or not Tupperwares, those big under the bed bins that you can have with the lid, and they put rice in there because sand is too small and messy to pick up. So they got bags of rice, which are pretty cheap, and they put that into a bin, and with a couple little toys and stuff they picked up at the dollar store, and they used like the rice bin as almost like a sand tray. Similar concept, just less mess and cheap. Later on in your career, you can upgrade to the beautiful sand trays and the cute, expensive toys, and the games that are amazing, and the little fidget toys, and all of those things. You can get those as time goes on, but just to start, have a couple basic things. So I think most of this, yes, some of it's financial, but most of it's mental. It's you understanding that you can have the most perfect space, but if you're not feeling confident as a clinician, then it doesn't matter what your space looks like, honestly. You could spend a ton of money on a space, but that doesn't mean that clients will come to it. So mostly you work on you in this time period. You work on your confidence. You work on getting used to the populations that you're working with. You can still like envision what that future dream space looks like, but don't put too much pressure on yourself if you don't have that in the beginning, or if it takes you a while to build that up. So make sure, above all, your supplies include things for you. So like I said, water, healthy snacks, food. If you are in an office space that has no windows, make sure you're spending some time outside. And in certain places, you may even be able to take your clients outside if you feel like they would benefit from that too. It's tough sometimes not having natural light in an office. And like I mentioned earlier, there was a lot of office spaces that I was in, pretty much all of them but one, that did not have a window in 10 years. So do what you got to do. As time goes on, that's when you can buy like the really nice like seasonal effective sort of like lights, that mimic sunlight. Like there's all these like nice fancy things you could do in the future. If you want to do EMDR, initially you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, people have these like beautiful like light bars and all these tappers and different things they could do, and you might just be using your hands. That's okay. You can upgrade to that stuff later. You'll get there. So to recap, start with the basic supplies. Think of your population. Think of the stuff you're absolutely going to need right from the get-go, and go cheap with it. Go to the stores that have better deals. Look for coupons. Look for sales. Look forward to like back to school time, where most of the school supplies / office supplies are a lot cheaper. And then worry about lighting. Worry about, the cute decor stuff. But make sure that you are budgeting for your office stuff and you're not going overboard, because the office stuff is not going to make you feel that much more confident as a therapist. But also make sure when you are making this list of supplies you need, you're including stuff that's just for you. Don't get overly focused on the clients. Think about what it is that you're going to need for your space. How are you going to survive seeing 7 clients in a day? Or how are you going to survive driving to 5 different homes that day? So I'm not going to get too into, your diet and hydration and all of that stuff. But you guys all know the basics. Drink water, eat pretty healthy, and exercise when you can, right? And those things become harder to do, or we prioritize them less, or both, when you're in the beginnings of your career. So you start getting hyper focused on the clients, but you got to make sure you take care of you first. Practice what you preach. That's like a really good thing to do as a therapist, especially because clients will know and you'll know. So yeah, hopefully this episode helped. I know that there's going to be a lot of other stuff that you might want or need in your office depending on what populations you work with. But like I said, just set the standard and the bar at the most basic level to begin with. You're not expected to have everything and know everything. You'll get there. So make sure you are taking care of yourself. Make sure that you are trying to do your best to prevent burnout, and make sure that you are giving yourself some props. You're doing your best. This is a hard job. This is a hard field to be in. So I think if you're here already, that shows that you're trying to learn more and you're trying to better yourself and be the best therapist / person that you could be. So it's a good start. So good luck, and I will see you guys next episode. Thanks.